A whistleblower trapped inside this scam compound run by the Chinese Mafia contacted me.
If they catch me, they actually kill me.
Determined to leak his captured secrets in real time. He would ultimately deliver an unprecedented cache of evidence.
This is a major deal.
Exposing the tactics and hierarchy of a slave colony here in northern Laos, where trafficked workers are forced to scam millions from American victims. But first, he had to make it out alive. I'm Andy Greenberg. I investigate the strange, dark, and subversive sides of technology for Wired. This is Hacklab, the whistleblower inside a crypto scam slave compound. This footage was secretly filmed inside a scam compound in northern Laos. The workers you see are trafficking victims, confined to the compound and forced to work 15-hour night shifts synced to US daytime hours. Their job is to target Western victims with text messages that lure them into fake crypto investments, sometimes stealing hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The color of the flags on their desks marks whether a team of scammers is meeting their quotas. It's part of a cruel system of incentives and coercion that drives the most lucrative form of cybercrime in the world. The video was shot by a source who first contacted me last June. It all started with an email, no subject line, sent from an address on the encrypted email service Proton Mail. "Hello," it began. "I'm currently working inside a major crypto romance scam operation based in the Golden Triangle." The unnamed source said he was a computer engineer trapped in the compound, forced to work as a scammer. "I've collected internal evidence of how the scam works step by step," he said. "I want to help shut this down." I knew only a little bit about the Golden Triangle, a lawless stretch of Laos bordering Myanmar and Thailand, dominated by Chinese syndicates that traffic in everything from drugs to human organs. But after 15 years of covering crypto crime as a reporter, I'd learned that crypto romance scams, known as pig butchering, drain tens of billions of dollars a year from victims. Behind this scam epidemic are hundreds of thousands of trafficked workers from the poorest regions of Asia and Africa, forced by the Chinese mob to carry out these scams inside dystopian slave compounds. What I didn't know, what no one had ever seen before, was what this industry looked like from the inside, from the perspective of a whistleblower sharing internal information in real time. I gave the source my number on the encrypted messaging app Signal. That night, after my kids were asleep, my phone lit up. The source began sending documents, flowcharts, scripts, internal guides that revealed step-by-step how the scams worked. Fake Facebook profiles, AI-generated deepfakes, and hired models. Carefully scripted affection, luring victims into fake trading platforms. And then, my phone rang. Hello.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for being willing to talk. What is your name, or what can I call you?
You can call me Red Bull, okay?
Oh, Red Bull? Red Bull?
Yeah, yes.
Later, he'd tell me he'd been looking at an empty can of the energy drink as we spoke. Okay. He said he'd contacted US and Indian authorities, Interpol, several news outlets. I was the only one who responded.
Not simple thing, yeah. Like big scam, very big scam.
Wow.
So you are the person I share my everything with you, okay? And you help me to expose this, right?
I was thrown off. My mind was reeling. I started a new call, this time with video enabled. I needed to see who I was talking to. Hey. So, he showed me. Thank you for picking up the phone. Good to see you. Red Bull told me his backstory. He was in his early 20s from India with a diploma in computer engineering. He'd been recruited with a fake job offer, IT manager, good salary, overseas opportunity. But when he arrived in Laos, his passport was taken by his bosses. Like, can you walk around a bit? Like, turn your camera around and show me out the window?
This is the building here.
Now he found himself trapped within a cluster of ugly concrete buildings known as the Buoshang compound in northern Laos. Like most pig butchering scammers, he'd pretend to be a wealthy woman online. His job was to build trust, manufacture intimacy, slowly guide victims towards fake crypto investment platforms run by his bosses.
So please keep it secret, okay? Don't tell anyone.
Okay.
Right now my mission is, brother, expose this.
No, thank you for trusting me.
Remember me in your prayers, and I have a lot of trust on you.
Don't take any unnecessary risks, please, and
Okay, no problem.
thank you very much. The next morning, after a few hours sleep, I reached out to Aaron West, a former prosecutor who now runs an anti-scam group called Operation Shamrock.
How was he able to make this call?
He had to ask for permission from his boss to go to a hotel, but he did. And then he showed me the front of this hotel. It was too blurry, but it was a Chinese sign.
It's all Chinese organized crime, and they move into locations and they literally take over everything is in Chinese. All the food around there is Chinese.
He had showed me a fake Chinese ID that they created for him. West had talked to survivors of scam compounds, she told me. She'd never heard of an actual whistleblower within a compound leaking information to a journalist.
This is a major, major deal.
He seems to be saying that like a lot of the victims, or maybe even all of them, are Indian American.
They do that. They do Malaysians on Malaysians. They do Japanese on Japanese. And here's someone on the inside who's willing to share this information and tell us everything about how this whole thing runs.
From that point on, Red Bull and I fell into a routine. Every morning, New York time, late night in Laos, he would walk outside his dorm and call me on Signal before heading to the cafeteria for dinner, the start of a work shift that would last until the afternoon of the next day. Sometimes Red Bull would tell me to record my screen. Then he would walk into the building and secretly film his surroundings while pretending to talk to his uncle. I got a tour through the bright lights of the Broshong office's lobby and stairwells, the lines of depressed-looking South Asian and African men lining up for food in its canteen. As they filed into the office, team leaders took employees' personal phones and put them in a box when they began their shifts, and they were strictly prohibited from taking work devices out of the office. But otherwise, the surveillance of staffers seemed surprisingly loose. The compound ran on a system of indentured servitude and debt, not shackles and chains. On the surface, it didn't look like the modern slavery I'd read about elsewhere. Instead, the whole operation felt more like a scene from Sorry to Bother You, a grotesque parody of a corporate sales floor. Bosses would post motivational messages to an office-wide WhatsApp group. They wrote things like, "Every day brings a new opportunity, a chance to connect, to inspire, and to make a difference. Talk to that next customer like you're bringing them something valuable because you are." There were promises of commissions and getting rich, but in reality, the system kept workers trapped in debt. Red Bull, or Ma Chao, his pseudonym in the compound, earned in yuan about $500 a month, then lost almost all of it to daily fines, usually for missing quotas. Red Bull told me he had never successfully scammed anyone. That meant he was fined so much that he was virtually broke and forced to subsist almost entirely on the food in the office cafeteria, mostly rice and vegetables that he said tasted of strange chemicals. Even that food, he said, was denied to anyone who so much as arrived late to their shift. Underneath the pretense of a voluntary sales force was a brutal system. The bosses held the workers' passports so no one could go home until they paid off their debt. Red Bull had heard of colleagues who were beaten or electrocuted, even one sold into prostitution.
Even like if they people know about me, I am talking with you, they definitely kill me without any reason.
Well, I will not publish anything then until you're free, right?
I don't want to go home without stop this, understand?
I just want to make sure that we can do this investigation slowly and carefully together.
Okay, man, okay.
Red Bull secretly installed Signal on his work computer, changing the name and icon to look like a shortcut to its hard drive, and sent me messages during his shifts with disappearing texts set to erase themselves after 5 minutes. Soon I was receiving a steady stream of pictures, screenshots, and videos. A spreadsheet and photos of a whiteboard on which his team's work was tracked, with scam totals in the thousands of dollars next to many of the group's nicknames. I learned that the term recharge meant scamming the same victim again. He sent me a photo of a Chinese ceremonial drum on a stand. When someone pulled off a big scam, 6 figures, sometimes even more, the scammer was allowed to strike it to celebrate. Later, Wired analyzed Red Bull's leaked data.
We had all these screenshots, right, of all of these text conversations that Red Bull's team was having. Each post has a profile picture next to it. And what we're able to do is use machine learning to identify each individual post in that image and extract both the message and who is sending it.
And in fact, they posted a special message every time they successfully scammed someone and included the amount of the scam and who had pulled it off.
And so we were able to find those specific posts and then take the numbers that they had announced in each individual post and add them together.
And what is the result?
These few dozen workers pulled in over $2.2 million over the course of 3 months.
My colleagues and I also studied the dozens of internal scam scripts that Red Bull sent, blueprints of how their fraud worked in chilling detail, how to create fake profiles, how to open conversations, stall video calls until deep fake models who worked in a specific room of the building were ready.
The scripts have line-by-line dialogues, so the scammers know how to go through an interaction like to a really granular degree. And there are lists of topics for making conversation, documents like 100 chat topics. What's your favorite group photo that you've taken with friends? Or have you recently bought something nice for yourself? But then it gets into these much more emotionally evocative questions. What was your dream when you were little? Or what was the last time I cried for?
Some scripts covered the use of cryptocurrency and how to coach victims to distrust their own banks when they issued fraud warnings.
Your bank might say that there's something wrong with this, but like, don't listen to them. That's just because they don't want you moving your money out of their financial institution and into cryptocurrency or into this other thing. It's this sort of inoculation and preparing them in advance. Can you believe my bank said this might be a financial scam or crypto scam or something? It's like a really wild psychological trick. Well, a scammer wouldn't talk about scamming. That would be nuts.
I mean, a lot of these documents are fully in Chinese. So Ziyi, you were helping us out as a native Chinese speaker by analyzing a lot of them, including this website that was really interesting that is kind of massive collection online of scam stuff.
Yeah, so this is like a public website that anyone can open and look into it. It's designed in a way that if you're a scammer, you're trying to answer a question that just came up, you can literally search the topic, refer to this guy, and talk in a very convincing way. It's like if you are a straight male persona talking to a woman, or you're a straight woman talking to a man, or even when you're a gay man talking to another gay man, this is what you should say to look more real, right? And they also break it down into topics. It's like, okay, what do you talk about your dinner last night, or your 401k, or your mortgage? And the other funny thing about this website is that it also has this section for the music playlist for people to listen to.
This is Spotify for scammers, among other things?
That's a very accurate description. It's like a playlist of like hundreds of hours of electronic music that you can play when you're busy scamming other people.
I mean, these are 15-hour night shifts, so you can imagine that they're like trying to get people to kind of tune out the rest of the world. The bosses micromanaged the fiction. One message coached workers to explain when their persona was traveling and why. Another warned not to mention what car you drive unless you can produce a convincing photo of it. What's really wild is that every single one of the workers is required to post their schedule for the day to their bosses, and not their actual real life schedule, but the schedule of their persona, like their morning yoga and meditation and setting positive intentions, and then lunchtime with family and dentist visits and gym time. The irony, of course, is that in reality, these poor guys are spending 15 hours in a fluorescent lit office, hunched over a keyboard, spamming out messages, and then going home to a dorm room with 5 other guys on bunks and a toilet in the corner of the room. Red Bull sent me screenshots too of internal chats and the tragic responses from the lonely victims, begging, confused, crying. Messages said, "Always had a dream of having a girlfriend, then wife like you. You stopped talking to me. I will continue praying for your mom. Please help me withdraw my money, okay? Question mark, question mark, question mark, crying emojis." One victim appeared to have recorded himself sobbing in his car after losing everything. The video was shared around the office for laughs. So in total, how many scammers are there in the whole Boshong compound?
In whole Golden Triangle, 500 plus offices, 50, 60 buildings, okay? In my office, there is 100 employees.
Okay.
And each team have one Chinese boss and one Indian professional person.
Red Bull was part of Team Elite, one of about a dozen teams with names like Team Invincible, Team Money, Team Excellent, and so on. He explained that his supervisor was an Indian man with a short beard and aviator glasses who went by the name Amani. Amani's supervisor was nicknamed Wu Wan, or 50K, a short Chinese man with a paunch, tight pants, and a tattoo on his chest. Other bosses went by the names Li Bo, Wang Zai, Yanzu, and 50K's boss was called Dahai, or Si. The boss above all of them was known as Ah Lang, but Red Bull never saw him in person.
He's very big and very powerful person. He also doing here organs, organs supply,
Really?
human organs.
Sometimes when Red Bull and I would speak or text, he'd call me Uncle,
Don't worry, uncle, I will be back.
a cover story in case anyone ever overheard or seized his phone. For a while, we even tried a different cover story of me pretending to be his secret girlfriend back home. Heart emojis and miss-yous, until it became too embarrassing to keep up and we scrapped it. It also reminded me a bit too much of the fraud romances his team was carrying out. One night, he sent me a kind of gentle parting message.
Good night, Restizy. You have done enough for today. Let your mind rest and let tomorrow come with fresh clarity and quiet strength.
I'll admit, it was actually a bit touching. I wasn't getting much sleep at the time. Then the next day, he told me that this line had been copied directly from ChatGPT. Red Bull explained how the compound used that AI tool and others like DeepSeek to keep conversations flowing endlessly to sound caring, romantic, persuasive. All of the scammers on his team were trained to use these LLMs to clean up their language, find just the right sentiment, and never run out of inviting turns of phrase. It had clearly worked on me. It's funny how easy it is to be taken in by a bit of sympathetic text sent by a new acquaintance on the other side of the world. As time passed and the collection of materials Red Bull sent to me mounted, I was also getting the sense that the walls were closing in on him. One day, Red Bull told me, his team leader Amani asked him with menacing calm why he was spending so much time outside, referring, it seemed, to the walks when Red Bull would talk to me on Signal and generating so few new clients. Maybe, Amani suggested, a beating or some electric shocks would increase his productivity. Then Red Bull also told me new surveillance cameras had been installed, one behind his desk, one in front. I told him all of this meant he should immediately stop messaging me from the office. My editors went further. They insisted that for Red Bull's safety, I should stop working with him at all until he was free. When I broke that news to Red Bull, that our reporting process was finished, he told me, to my surprise, that he wanted to leave the compound immediately. His escape plan was to forge a document claiming that he was under police investigation in India. He hoped his bosses would let him leave temporarily to deal with the situation.
I'm very worried about that they're going to know that it's fake and they're going to punish you.
Let's see, just try. And I have a hope it's work.
One afternoon, 2 weeks into my communications with Red Bull, I received one of the worst emails I've ever opened in my life.
The people catch me and now they get my phone, everything. They beat me and now maybe they kill me. I am trapped. I have no way to get out. They have my personal phone and my ID card. If there is anything you can do, please help me.
From Red Bull's messages, it seemed like his bosses hadn't detected he was talking to me, but were punishing him for trying to escape. Soon after, he messaged again. His captors had locked him in a room, he wrote, and demanded 20,000 yuan, about $2,800, for his release. I felt sick. Journalistic ethics forbid paying sources, plus paying a ransom would reward these human traffickers, and yet this was a man begging for his life. At the same time, a dark thought had crept into my mind that I almost didn't want to acknowledge. What if Red Bull was scamming me? It was clear that he definitely was a real person inside a scam compound, but what if this had been the scam all along? Hook a journalist, make him feel responsible, then demand payment to save his life. I frantically consulted experts for advice.
What we've seen happen is people are victimized and have their money stolen from them from scammers. And then the scammer flips the script and says, hey, I'm actually the victim here, just like you. I just need some money to get out. Would you pay my ransom? And you can imagine that that would be very effective on people who have already been brought in by emotional ties to this person. It's another way of scamming.
My editors were firm. Wired would not pay Red Bull or his captors. They worried, as did I, that he might be deceiving me. And still, I had to operate under the assumption that Red Bull's nightmare was real. For several excruciating days, I didn't dare reach out to him. If his captors found out he was communicating with a reporter, they'd kill him. But then Red Bull messaged me on Signal to say that he'd been given his phone back so they could find someone to pay his ransom. I risked a call.
Hello, good morning.
So how are things?
Things are not going good because I have also fever,
He'd been repeatedly beaten, slapped in the face, kicked, and forced to confess to forging the police document. His bosses even mixed a mysterious powder into his water to make him compliant. It had made him unnaturally talkative and confident, but then gave him a rash on his skin. He was denied food and water for days.
I also sent the message to the Indian embassy, no response. Nobody is going to help me, I don't know why. When the luck is bad, nobody helps.
Not long after that call, Red Bull sent me a kind of confession, written as if he thought he might die in his concrete room.
I said I never scammed anyone. That was not fully true. The truth is, the Chinese bosses forced me to bring 2 people into the scam. I did not do it by choice. I feel guilty about it every day. That is why I want to tell the full truth now.
One victim lost $504, the other about $11,000. He gave me their names. I located one and reached out, but got no response. By the compound's own rules, Red Bull should have earned a commission for those scams, but they never paid him. Later, I looked back at the picture of the office whiteboard Red Bull had shared early on. On it, I could see quite clearly the Chinese name the compound had given him, Ma Chao, next to the sum of $504. I had, until then, entirely missed this. Just days later, something else unexpected happened. Red Bull told me the compound was packing up. The office computers were boxed, the staff moved to a new building, and everyone was ordered to keep working from their dorm rooms. He had heard rumors that a police raid was imminent. During all of this, Red Bull was separated from his coworkers, forced to sleep on the floor, fed only sporadically, often only leftovers or rotten food. He lost weight, he was sick with a fever. For trying to escape, he was treated more or less like a dog. Unbelievably, that's when Red Bull took the biggest risk of all. Because of the move to evade a raid, security measures in the compound had been relaxed and his coworkers had brought their work phones into the dormitory. Red Bull saw an opportunity. While one of his coworkers was sleeping, he secretly added his own phone as a linked device on the WhatsApp of the coworker's work phone. Then, by scrolling through that WhatsApp chat and recording his own screen, Red Bull captured nearly 3 months of the compound's hour-by-hour internal chats. Thousands of conversations between workers and their supervisors, documenting its scams, quotas, punishments, manipulations, and daily operation at an unprecedented level of detail. Nearly 10 gigabytes of evidence. Here at Wired, we would turn those screen recordings into 4,200 pages of screenshots.
I have never seen anything like the materials that you showed me.
What struck you about this workplace?
Well, it's a slave colony masquerading as a legitimate business. It's run as though this is a car dealership. And so it's really creepy to be reading texts that are a leader sending out suggestions and inspiration about how to hit these goals, when in fact the goals are theft of money. People are disappearing. People are being beaten if they don't make their sales goals.
Just days after he made those screen recordings, still trapped in the compound after his escape attempt, Red Bull sent me something else. Videos of dozens of men lined up outside a compound by Laotian police. The raids had begun. They turned out to be part of a trend of high-profile fake police crackdowns in the region where workers are briefly rounded up, then quickly released and sent back to work. Red Bull's bosses had been tipped off and escaped those raids, but the move had left them in cramped conditions with their work disrupted. As their operation hid from the cops, Red Bull begged the bosses to let him go. He argued that he was of no use to them. He had no money, and clearly there was no one in the world willing to pay his ransom. He was dead weight, taking up space when they were already crowded into their temporary building. Shockingly, his bosses agreed. Rather than kill him, they told him he could leave. They gave him back his passport, but told him to get into a car without most of his belongings, not even his shoes. He left the Golden Triangle wearing only flip-flops. To scrounge enough money to get home, he borrowed from his brother and from a scam compound recruiter who he promised to go work for, essentially scamming a scammer. After weeks of buses, trains, and cheap flights, Red Bull made it back to India. Red Bull had rescued himself, and despite the fact that I had never paid him anything, not even his ransom when he was held captive, he continued to send me materials he'd smuggled out of the compound. Now there could finally be no doubt. Red Bull was real. A few months later, I flew to India to meet him in person. All right, here he comes. He was thinner than I expected, quiet. He had the same shy smile I remembered from our first video call.
You look great. Yeah, it's really good to see you.
His real name, he told me, was Mohammed Muzahir. We spent a few days together, and I learned that the brave young man I'd been communicating with for months was now broke, traumatized, sleeping as little as 3 hours a night, haunted by the people he had left behind and by the 2 victims he admitted he'd scammed under coercion. So now that we're publishing this stuff, is this a happy ending to your story? Is this, in fact, what you wanted?
Actually, if I tell you the truth, this is not the happy ending of my story. This is just a journey I started because I left a lot of people there. A lot of my colleagues are there working under pressures. A lot of women working under the pressure of Chinese bosses, 14 hours, 16 hours, sometimes without food. So honestly, I'm not happy with the ending of the story because the memory is still there. I'm still thinking about the people who are victim of this scam.
When Muzahir isn't working or applying to jobs in universities, he scrolls obsessively through reports of scam operations. The operation that trapped him, he's learned, has already relocated to Cambodia, a country that's become by some measures an even safer base for scammers to operate from. By messaging his former coworkers, Muzahir says he's determined that the compound is now based in the town of Shrey Thom, a growing hotspot for scam operations. One of his old bosses, too, confirmed to Muzahir in text messages that the compound is still recruiting new workers, victims trapped in a system of modern slavery masquerading as a job.
We're talking about buildings the size of hotels that are filled with human trafficked victims forced to do this work. The only winner here are the Chinese organized crime syndicates that are running the whole operation. They are the leadership. They are the ones who are building these compounds, who are bringing in the human trafficked victims, who are laundering the money out, and it's leaving population decimated on both sides.
How did this whole experience change your ideas about human nature, like what you think of human beings?
I have no word to express, but I just want to tell you, I see the brutal and the dark face of the humanity.
Muzahir still believes that telling his story matters. He chose to risk his life and to reveal his real name and face, in part to inspire others to come forward.
When someone read about me, then a lot of Red Bulls stand up and speak.
Many victims of these scam slave colonies never make it home. And never before has one spoken out from inside like Muzahir and survived. Even then, his whistleblowing hasn't shut down the operation that enslaved him as he intended. I can only hope that what he shared and the sprawling humanitarian crisis it reveals will help persuade the world that it's finally time to stop looking away. Read Wired's full story on Red Bull and our analysis of his leaked materials at wired.com.